Hi everybody, I am TheReadingTortie and welcome back to my channel. Today we'll be doing the book review for a book that I think I've been pretty excited about. It's huge, it's a great historical fiction, and it is the behemoth of A Column of Fire by Ken Follett. It's huge, it's about 990 pages, 915 or so with the credits and acknowledgments and all that good stuff. Good stuff. So yeah, we'll be doing the book review for this book today. However, because it is so massive, I will also probably get tired of holding it at some point because I have noodle arms and this book's heavy. The book review is going to be separated into 4 parts. It's going to be part 1, which I will do today, of synopsis and characters, part 2 of setting and conflict, part 3 of plot and historicism. I'm not a historian, so that one might be a little sketchy. And then the 4th part is going to be the resolution and the conclusion of what my review is going to be, essentially. So instead of really having a topic of discussion, I'm just going to have the reviews broken down so that I can pay closer attention to certain details without giving you guys like 1.5 hour long episode, because that's a little much for most people. For some people it isn't. Anyways, so let's get started. Ken Follett's A Column of Fire is the 3rd book in the Kingsbridge series, with the first being Pillars of the Earth and the second being World Without End. I will also post reviews of those 2 books at the end of the month. So this month is really going to be historical fiction, Kingsbridge series, Ken Follett's A Column of Fire, Pillars of the Earth, World Without End. There is a mini-series adaptation of the first 2 books, which I highly recommend, even though they are different from the books. They're still fantastic. Please be warned, you will go through one of the biggest emotional roller coaster rides of your life, a lot of it being frustration and just desperation for stuff to stop going wrong, but that's why I love it. So let's get started. I have my stuff printed out because I had to really diagram and chart this one, so that is why I have a clipboard as well with this one, just because it's so huge and detailed, and honestly we kind of expected it. The book is slipping. Okay. Whew. So, synopsis. A Column of Fire by Ken Follett is a historical fiction that follows the religious and political upheaval during the reign of Elizabeth I. It starts in the year 1558 and ends in the year 1620, and it follows the lives of the citizens of Kingsbridge during this very treacherous time. It also follows some new French characters that we have, and of course the crowned Elizabeth I, as well as Mary Queen of Scots. That lady, that character. Such bad luck, man. In an overly simplified way, very, very, very simplified. Like, I don't even understand. If you want to give a 3-word synopsis of what this book is about, it's ultra-Catholics versus ultra-Protestants, because religious affiliations are, in my opinion, what drive the wars, the conspiracies, and ultimately the entire plot of the book. Because the book really starts with an event that puts Ned Willard into the service of Elizabeth I, and although it's not directly related to religious inclinations, there is undertones of it simply because of the 2 families that are involved, namely the Willards and the Fitzgeralds, I believe. I think it is. Yes, the Willards and the Fitzgeralds. So I believe that's the ridiculously oversimplification explanation of what this book is. Not a Tudor era book at all. Like all of Ken Follett's stories, it is very long, very complicated, and very, very beautiful and artistic. The story has romance, intrigue, fanaticism, betrayal, tragedy, lots and lots of tragedies before everything kind of gets better, but then you're still left with, why is it not all better? And the answer? It's life and history. So a lot of these events aren't really surprising unless you're not familiar with the time period. So really what gets to you is the lives of the people that Ken Follett creates, and that's what eats at you while you're reading the book, and that's who you fall in love with, who you hate, who you just look at and like, why are you a thing? But you know, characters like them were real in history, so it's amazing. The book is separated into 5 parts, plus the prologue and the epilogue. I'm not going to review the book in the part. See, I'm getting tired. Okay. I'm not going to review the book in the part simply because it would get a little more difficult to not be spoiler-y. And while I could spoil it for you guys, I'm not going to, because this book, because of how massive it is and expansive and just in depth it is, it's an entire experience in and of itself. I came out of this book feeling like I had lived every single life that I had experienced here. I had died with all of these characters. I had lived with them, given birth to their children. I was there the entire life of these characters. And so when I came out of this book, I felt like I should have lived about 50 lives, but I was still just me, and it was only 3 months. So this book is really a trek for yourself, for your mind, emotionally. It's really good. So, start with the characters. There are a ton of characters, and they're all fabulous in their own special way. So, we have Ned Willard, who is the head of, I had to write all this down simply because of how many characters there were. So, Ned Willard is head of Elizabeth's Secret Service and her top spy. He's ambitious, very intelligent, very quick, and although he's not the strongest, he is the most intelligent kid, essentially, to come out of Kingsbridge at the time. He is in love with Marjorie, and we know that from the very beginning, Rolo Fitzgerald, and he's a neutral Protestant in England, which is not exactly a good thing when, if you weren't ultra-Protestant or ultra-Catholic, you were essentially against whatever affiliation you were with. So he really was the first one to not feel like your identification is who you are, but more it's how you practice it. So Ned Willard was way ahead of his time. He is smart, and after his family is disgraced and just ruined and losing the love of his life, he decides to leave Kingsbridge to serve Elizabeth I and build a future for himself. And that really sets in motion what takes place the rest of the book, because he's the first one to step out of Kingsbridge, and the reason we have this story is because he's involved so heavily, and that's why we have all of our emotional roller coasters and our just the emotions. Ned also has a brother named Barney, who is a very charismatic sailor, and he is also Protestant. He has a wife whose name I don't recall, but she was very lovely, and when he fell in love with her, it was so beautiful. It was one of the most beautiful romances I had ever seen transpire, and I felt the love that he felt for her. Alice is Ned and Barney's mother, and there's Alpha, who ends up being Ned's nephew. So that is the Willard little family. Later on is another person. Marjorie Fitzgerald is in love with Ned Willard, but she's forced to marry somebody else because of the fact that her parents are obsessed with becoming part of the nobility, aristocracy, and status. Her family later becomes Earl Swithin and Bart. And of course, these are the characters that kind of make your skin crawl. And then there's her children. Then there's Rolo Fitzgerald. So Rolo Fitzgerald is, I don't know, there's one in every book of his characters. Just that pest that doesn't leave you alone. That's Rolo Fitzgerald. So he has a personal rivalry with Ned Willard that later turns into a huge political rivalry that drives a lot of the stuff that goes on as far as on an international scale and the wars that take place. And Rolo and Ned really become key players. And while it is Protestants versus Catholics, England versus Europe, it also is at another level, Ned versus Rolo. So Rolo is a pretty important character, and I was surprised because I didn't exactly expect that. So Rolo Fitzgerald. Sylvie Pallet. Then there's her mother Isabel and her father Giles. Sylvie Pallet, I think, is one of, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing her name because she's French. So Sylvie is one of the first French characters that we get introduced to who is a Protestant. She's kind of a badass. Like, she's amazing. Her mother and father run an illegal printing press that covers as a regular legal printing press, but they print the Bible in the common language, the vernacular, and she sells them secretly to the Protestants of Paris, and she exports them in France and things like that. So Sylvie turns into possibly one of the most powerful women on the Protestant side, and she's so brave to the point that she's reckless, but she believes in her principles, and she is a character that functions on principles, not on situation. And while at first she was very, very Protestant, she develops into what she believes is religious equality, kind of like Ned, that religious freedom, sorry about that, that you should practice whatever faith you want to practice without being persecuted. And there is no really right or wrong. We should just each have our own places of worship, and we should just leave the others alone because we're not causing harm. So Sylvie is someone who really, really, really influences the plot. Then there's Pierre Aumont de Guise. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Pierre. He is the ambitious, broke guy that works his way up from the slums to becoming the head spy for one of the most powerful, influential, noble families of France, the Guise. He has a wife, and then he has a stepson and a maid. So Pierre is fighting to be a part of the rich and the wealthy. He comes from a very impoverished family. He is a nobody as far as bloodlines go. So he is not supposed to be worth the time of day, but he goes out of his way to be with the rich, to have their mannerisms, their attitudes towards money. And although he is starving and he is pretty much on the verge of death, he will not ask for money. He will not be like, hey, are you going to pay me back for that last of my money to my name that I loan you? And he will go out of his way to ensure that he looks the part, even though he doesn't. He's like the epitome of fake it till you make it. So Pierre, although he becomes a very sleazy character, I really admired his determination and his just obsession with going after it. Like, this guy would rather die than be ousted. And it's really, really, it's really impressive to me, because the way that he's depicted, it's very ambitious, and then it gets really arrogant, and then he takes the qualities of the Guise, but he works his way up, he does what he has to. He gets down and dirty and he does it all, but he becomes so important and so influential in France, and he becomes one of the key players for the Catholic side, like Ned becomes one of the key players of the Protestant side. Then there's the Dukes de Guise. I am mispronouncing all of this. I am so sorry. There's Scarface, then there's Henry. So, not much to say, honestly, about them, although they are characters in it. Since Pierre is he's the mastermind. They're kind of the figureheads, and he's the one in the background making everything happen. So Pierre is really smart. Then there's Queen Elizabeth I, who needs no introduction, really, by any means. She is depicted as very larger than life. She's not perfect. She has her attitude. She has her flaws. And they're presented at times in an endearing way, at times in a really bitter, angry way, depending on how Ned feels about her at the time. So we really get to see how she was great in some aspects, but how she could have been frustrating in others. So Ned Willard really helps to paint Queen Elizabeth with the endearment of a brother or a lover simply because of how long he worked for her. He dedicated his life to protect her. So she was someone so dear to him, and he loved her. And it was one of those like, you're frustrating me, but I still love you. And it was a love that transcended so many forms of love. And it was a love and a respect for her and for what she represented, because to Ned, she represented his ideals, and that is why he dedicated his life to her. So, Queen Elizabeth I, kind of a big deal. Okay. Off the first page. All right. So, book. We move on to the Network of Spies, because everybody has spies, and there's spies everywhere, and you know, they're just spies crawling everywhere. So the Catholic spies are Carlos and Ibrima. Kind of, sort of, actually. They're just Barney's buddies that go out and become like soldiers and rebels and all that good jazz. However, Jeronima was someone that Barney came into contact with, I believe, in the New Spain, which is like in the Caribbeans or something like that. I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm terrible with geography. So, Jeronima, she loses everything because of the church, the Catholic Church. And she becomes embittered by it. And so she takes on some terrible, terrible things, because she says, I'm going to do what I need to do to survive, because I refuse to be defeated by this, and I am going to be used and get closer to my enemy, get as close to my enemy as I possibly can until it's my time to strike. And so you have these scorned women. There's the maid, Nath. Pierre's maid. I don't know if I was going to say it. So Pierre's maid, Nath. She has also been scorned and just wronged by the Catholic Church. Like the Catholic Church has wronged a lot of people, in the 1580s when it was just corruption central. So there's a whole network of men and women fighting for what they believe in, dealing with these injustices that they're just thrown into these horrendous situations. Jeronima has to become a mistress to this sleazy old guy, and she's like, I refuse to be defeated by this. And she knows that she's gonna be handled. She's gonna probably be sold at some point for services and favors, and she takes it with so much dignity that she became one of my most favorite characters, because while she was selling her body because she had to, or else she was gonna starve, because that's what happened in the 1580s, she owned it. And she's like, yeah, I'm doing this, but you know what? You just wait. And she becomes such a key role in the fight against just corruption and injustices. So I really liked that Ken Follett never painted any of these women as really victims. If they were victims, it was because they allowed themselves to be the victims. Because you had so many examples of women that were like, man, this is the worst of the worst situation, but you know what? Screw you, I'm going to get you back eventually. And it is so dignified the way they carry themselves, and it is absolutely lovely. And you see so many of these people just come out of the darkest hours, out of the ashes. Sylvie loses everything. She turns to prostitution, then she hates it. And she realizes she doesn't want to do that. And so Sylvie, although she didn't take the attitude that Jeronima did, even though that was amazing, Sylvie decided to live by her principles, and that she would rather die than betray herself and who she was. Jeronima decided that she was going to be a fighter in her own way. Sylvie decided she is going to stick to who she is, even if it kills her. And if it kills her, so be it. She is ready to die. And that was amazing. Ken Follett has a habit of writing amazing, amazing women. Karis. I love Karis, but I will talk to her about her later. So, yeah. The Network of Spies, the characters, they're all awesome. And Marjorie. Marjorie's a character that I had a bit of a complicated relationship with. Marjorie, while she is strong and she sticks to her principles, I feel while Sylvie is realistic about the corruption in the Catholic Church and realistic that there should be tolerance to a certain extent. It takes a while for Sylvie to get there. Ned's like there from the get-go. And while Hieronyma is embittered by what happened because of the Catholic Church, Marjorie frustrates me because of how blindly enamored she is by the Catholic Church. Like, no, dude, your brother's corrupt. That priest that you're harboring is corrupt. And he's not going to stand by you when you're being assaulted and raped. And the first time that she realizes that this priest that's supposed to symbolize enlightenment and spiritual guidance and all that is good doesn't meet her standards, she gets the first reality check that men are flawed, that humans are flawed. And that's when she first grows. But Marjorie is also a very strong character that sticks to her own principles. She is out smuggling Catholic priests, even though she can go to jail for it. And although she's not as, brave and tough as Sylvie is, and Sylvie's like, oh, I'm gonna die, so be it. And Marjorie's like, I don't want to die, but I'll risk my life. Marjorie is still very strong in that she suffers through whatever she has to suffer, just quite a bit, and it sucks. And she takes very strong steps to develop her character, develop as a person, as a human, and to right the wrongs that she feels she has committed, even though it will hurt her in the end. So she really develops. I think Marjorie is one of the characters that develops the most, going from blind fanatical Catholic to no, Catholicism isn't all good because it's the center of corruption at the moment. But religious tolerance is what's important. So Marjorie's pretty cool. And Ned and Marjorie and Sylvie are also two of the three most influential women in his life, the third being Elizabeth I, obviously. So the dynamic between the two women also, because they end up meeting, is absolutely beautiful. They have a dignified respect for one another in Ned's life, and while Sylvie does feel envy for Marjorie, she is confident in and at peace with herself, so she doesn't act like a fool. She is very controlled and factual about the relationship, and it is this candor that I really like about her. Even if she did recommend beheading Caris' statue, which I almost threw the book out the window for. So, I was having issues saying that because I didn't want to just throw out a huge spoiler, but I'm sure you guys can determine what happens, so I'm just going to leave it at that. So Sylvie and Marjorie end up meeting, and I didn't know how they were going to react, but I love Sylvie's just a matter-of-fact attitude, like, okay, I am here, you are there, Ned loves us both, he loves you kind of a little more, and I envy that, but that's okay. And Marjorie's just, oh, crud, this girl's really direct, really upfront. And Sylvie just says, it is what it is, we just have to live life. And Sylvie is so mature, even though she did recommend to behead Caris' statue, which, oh my gosh, don't touch Caris. Sylvie is so mature and so just astute. She really is so hardened to life that she knows just because her husband is in love with somebody else, it's not the end of the world. Because she's been at the end of the world. She's been at the end of her rope. She's been at the verge of death. She has been in the worst of it all. And she's so hardened to life that she's like, I love life and I value it for what it is. And yeah, my husband loves her, but he loves me too, And it's fine because he's not going to betray me. And that maturity and that trust and faith in who she is and who Ned is and what they have together, which is so beautiful, so special. I think Ned and Sylvie's love is very unique in the entire trilogy, because while Caris and Myrddin, my God, Caris and Myrddin had some of the most beautiful tragic love stories ever, Ned and Sylvie had a very unique modern love story. They respected each other before they loved each other. And that is something so unique and beautiful. So, Sylvie and Marjorie, awesome characters. And Sylvie's character lives in the book the way it's supposed to. And when the story with her ends, I could not have seen it ending any better way because it's who she is to the very end. Brave, her principles, and fearless. Absolutely fearless. So, that's it for part 1. That was the synopsis and the characters. Let me know what you guys thought, who your favorite characters were, who your not your favorite characters were, what you thought of Pierre, because he's freaking crazy, DeGeese, all the DeGeeses, I don't know how to pronounce their names in the plural form, and just all of the many intricate characters. I listed like 10 characters. That does not even scratch the surface of all the characters in here. Seriously, there's like 100 people connected to Rolo, and then there's like 50 more people connected to Pierre that are connected to 50 more, to 50 more, to 50 more, and Ned. There's like 50 to 100 people connected to Ned. Just him, plus those connected to those people. So, any characters you want to talk about, the synopsis, anything, let me know, because this book deserves a grand discussion. It's amazing. If you've debated picking it up, please do. Might take you a while because, goodness gracious, that's a giant book. But it is so worth it. So, part 2, we will be discussing the setting and the conflict. So, that's it for this book, for this part of the review. Let me know what you guys thought, and we shall pick it up in the next video. Thank you for stopping by, and I'll see you next time. Bye!